Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Mapei Academy Building Line webinar series. Thank you for attending. I hope this afternoon you get some valuable information out of this presentation. My name is Dennis Gray. I'm the Mapei Australia Product Manager for the Building Line group of products. So today's topic, crack repair, will run for approximately 15 minutes, after which there'll be plenty of time to ask any questions that you may have. So for the time being, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. Okay, so crack repair and management. Okay, cracks that could compromise the structure, and by that I'm talking structural cracks, are generally not covered by this presentation. In these particular situations, it's always prudent to refer these to a professional engineer for thorough assessment and to understand whether there is any specific requirements or remediation work required to bring the structure or the element back to its load-bearing capabilities. So certainly cracks like you see here on a supporting column would certainly need to have an engineer look at it and assess its load-bearing capabilities and what repairs are required. Okay, so Mapei has a broad range of products, including those in this presentation that can be used for structural repairs, and they could be used as part of the engineer's remediation instructions once they've thoroughly assessed the situation and understand exactly what's required to return it to its load-bearing capabilities. Cracks that are static can be repaired. Cracks that are live or still growing, still moving, require thorough evaluation prior to any repair to determine the cause and the extent of the movement. For crack causes, there's a lot of different reasons why cracking, including placement, curing related issues in the initial stages, all the way through to exceeding design loads and concrete degradation or reinforcement corrosion can also cause cracking. So it's important to understand what exactly is going on before you set about repairing a crack. It's always recommended to determine why the crack occurred to avoid it reoccurring. As you'll see here at the bottom, a repair can be undertaken, nicely filling the crack, and if you haven't identified what the reason was, then a crack can occur right alongside the previous crack. So why do we repair cracks? Cracks have the potential to crack through tiles, show through resilient floor coverings like vinyl and lino, and they also allow corrosive influences to attack the steel reinforcement. Water and contaminants can get down through cracks and reduce the passivating layer or the alkalinity of the concrete surrounding the steel, and subsequently cause steel reinforcement corrosion and ultimately a degradation of the concrete element. Static hairline cracks, so we're talking cracks of less than 0.2 of a millimetre, generally don't require a specific repair. Sometimes a coating to just seal the surface is all that's required. You'll also see in some cases on a concrete slab when it rains, as it dries out, you'll start to see the cracks, and then when it completely dries out, it's almost not visible again. And this is caused like by plastic shrinkage cracking or crazy cracking in the very early stages of concrete placement, the surface drying out. So cracked substrate solutions, we talk about crack isolation. For badly affected substrates, consider isolating the substrate. Having an unbonded screed may be a solution, and an isolation layer, as you see in the diagram below. Our Mapei system is another isolation solution for tiles and stone, and this can be used without a screed being laid. Mapei 2, it offers both crack isolation and sound deadening. So for that, contact Mapei for further advice. It's interesting to note that a maximum movement of up to 10 millimeters can be overcome with these systems. If waterproofing over hairline cracks or small cracks, then reinforcing the membrane is always an ideal situation. Mapelastic Smart with MapiNet 150 or another reinforcement, Mapitech Cell could also be used to reinforce the waterproofing to safeguard it against any compromise in the case of movement of the crack. Note that crack isolation methods are only suitable for in-plane movement. In-plane movement on the left-hand side of your screen, as opposed to out of plane, which is a much more difficult situation and one that requires some thorough evaluation before addressing. So when we talk about crack repair, epoxy systems particularly, Mapei's crack repair products are all 100% solids epoxies. So there's no solvents, no reduction in their volume in curing. They're excellent adhesives, and as I said, with no shrinkage, and whose tensile strength exceeds that of the concrete being repaired. These products vary in their viscosity and flow, optimizing them for different sized crack repairs. Adhesilex PG4 is a paste consistency. EpoRip is a paint-like consistency. EpoJet is a low viscosity free-flowing epoxy resin. And EpoJet LV is a very low viscosity free-flowing epoxy resin. So let's now have a look at the crack repair process, how we go about these crack repairs. So for something cracks over 5 millimeters, Adhesilex PG4 is an ideal solution. A thixotropic paste installed with a spatula stays where you put it. It doesn't drain out like a liquid crack injection material. So you work it into the crack, and it's important to remove any poorly adhered material and make sure that the bonding surfaces is clean before installing the Adhesilex PG4. But a smooth, creamy paste that allows a thorough filling of particularly the top surface of the crack and stopping any contaminants, water, and the like from getting down into the surface and maybe to the steel. EpoRip for cracks from 5 mil down to 0.5 mil. So grinding the cracks to a minimum 0.5 mil wide and down 10 mil deep. Make sure that all the dust is removed because cleanliness is very important here. It can compromise the bond of the epoxy. So we'll see now the mixing of the components. And as is the case with most epoxy resins, the A and the B component are different colors. So you know when it has been thoroughly mixed. There's no streaks and lines in the material. It's a nice homogeneous, even color. So the EpoRip is a thicker consistency, like a paint type consistency, and can be used for wider cracks because it has a tendency to hold up in those wider cracks without free flowing right through. And it's important in the evaluation before repairs start to understand whether or not you have access to the underside of the crack. And if that's the case, then it opens up a whole extra amount of options to repairing the crack. Here you can also see a sand seeding of the epoxy after the filling of the crack. And this can be done, doesn't necessarily have to be done, but it would be done if another coating is being applied over the top, because the shiny epoxy would tend to not allow a good bonding of lots of different coatings. So by applying a sand, it gives a nice key for the subsequent coatings to bond to. EpoJet, it's for cracks of 2 mil down to 0.2 of a millimeter. And you can see here that it's a very thin material, like warm honey type consistency that flows quite readily into the cracks. And a more fluid material for finer cracks allows the resin to flow better into the base and seal the joint or seal the crack off better. Again, sand seeding can be used if a subsequent coating is being applied. Then we move on to the EpoJet LV, which has a 40% less viscosity than the EpoJet. So it's ideal for crack injection work down to 0.1 of a millimeter. So we're talking about micro cracking. And it also can tolerate damp substrates. So this is a nice solution for very fine cracks if they do need to be repaired. Okay, so when we talk about installation, we've seen gravity feed. Injection repair is when the epoxy is forced into the crack under pressure. It provides for deeper penetration and penetration obviously into the finer cracks. It also provides a solution for walls or overhead where you can't gravity feed. There's many different pumps and pumping equipment that can be used to pressure feed epoxy resins in crack injection. Mapei offers an easy to use, cost-effective solution. It's an injection syringe. And the process is quite simple. You have a crack either in a wall or a floor or overhead. You have a concrete element, and all of this crack repair is related to concrete. So drill a series of holes, generally about 8 millimeter holes, along or adjacent to the crack, and blow out, remove all the dust. So the spacings will be determined by the crack size and also the concrete element thickness. So generally, as a rule, if the concrete was 150 mil thick, then you would start at something like 150 mil spacings, and they can become wider depending on the size. If the cracks are wider, then they can be further spaced apart. So glue the plastic nipples over the holes. Using the Mapei PESF, which is a fast curing polyester resin adhesive. It takes about 30 minutes to fully cure. Then seal the surface of the crack. This is also very important when crack injection work is being done. As I said earlier, if you can get to the back of the element, you should also seal the back side. And this can also be done with the fast setting Mapei PESF. Okay, at this stage, you're ready to start the injection process. So mix the EpoJet or the EpoJet LV and start at the lowest point. If it's on a wall, start at the lowest point and inject into that one. And then when the liquid is seen coming out of the second injection port, you put the second one in, and subsequently until you've got to the top or completely filled the crack. Okay, so in summary, always have an engineer assess structural cracks. If it looks concerning, then it is a great idea to have somebody that understands concrete and understands load-bearing structures to take a look at it and understand and give you some feedback on the best way to undertake the repair. Identify and remove the reason for the crack to prevent a reoccurrence. It may be an underpinning scenario, or it may be a need to put further support or strengthening to prop up one side or the other of the concrete. For in-plane cracks, an unbonded screed or an appropriate crack isolation system may provide a good solution, and a very cost-effective solution at that. Always select which Mapei epoxy crack repair product to use based on the size of the crack, and they can be used in combination. It's not uncommon to use a low viscosity crack repair and then seal the surface with a paste like Adhesilex PG4. So for cracks greater than 5 millimeters, or for sealing the surface, Adhesilex PG4. From 5 down to 0.5, EpoRip. From 2 millimeters down to 0.2, we would use the EpoJet. And from 2 millimeters down to 0.1, we would use the EpoJet LV. Okay, so we've covered a lot of material here today. You can go back and watch this or any of a whole range of webinars at the Mapei Academy simply by logging on to our website, going to the training section, and you will see a whole list of previously recorded Mapei Academy webinars that you can look at your leisure. So thanks for your attendance. I hope you gained some valuable information from this presentation. And now, if you have any questions, by all means, please put them forward. Alternatively, if you think of a question after, you may email me or phone me. My details are on the screen now. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, please put them forward now. Okay, it looks like everyone knows a lot about repairing cracks, so thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Mapei Academy webinar. Thank you and have a great day.